Hi, welcome to the video. My name is Chronic, and today I wanted to talk about my top 10 Warlock Exotics in Destiny 2. And of course, as always, I have made a spreadsheet for this video. And as you can see on screen right now, an example, my spreadsheets have dark theme, color code, pictures, recommendations, and for the Warlock Exotics, we have rankings for both PvE and PvP for every single exotic in the game. And as always, this is fully public for you guys to use. You can find that at my Discord server, linked in the description down below on the channel #SpreadsheetStocks. If you can't see it right away, just make sure you verify with a bot. And I know you guys probably don't like hearing this every time, but these spreadsheets really would not be possible without my patrons on Patreon, and definitely not possible without these cute animals on screen right now that will distract you from my ad read. Because let's face it, these spreadsheets take 20 hours every week, and I could be spending that on a part-time job. Patrons are making it possible for me to actually make a living and make these spreadsheets. Check out a link in the description down below for how you can support. Moving on, this video is going to be split into two main parts. First part, we're going to go backwards through the top 10, talk about why I really like these exotics and why they excel in what they do. And the second part is going to talk about all of the non-ranked items. Now, this part, a lot of people will probably skip out on, but I highly recommend you do watch that. You're going to find a lot of exotics that are really fun, just not top 10 worthy. Moving on, let's go ahead and get started with number 10. We have the Nezrick Synth. Somewhat of a fan favorite exotic, as any void damage kill increases your ability energy recharge rate. And especially with Void 3.0, people are really liking this exotic. However, I will say that people do overrate this exotic. From my actual testing, I've found the energy ability recharge rate is only like 5% per kill. And this is still really nice because it can be used on Void, it can be used on Stasis or any of their subclasses with Void weapons, with Void abilities, no matter what. And if you are confused about this, it's often because you're going to be using Devour with this particular exotic. And Devour itself gives you around 20 to 25% of your grenade energy whenever you get a kill with Devour. So that actually does a lot of the legwork. That being said, I still really like this exotic, and I really recommend it to you whenever you're doing anything. PvE, PvP, Void, not Void, excellent exotic. Up next at number 9, we have the Aeon Soul. Pretty much true for every single other Aeon exotic. They get an 8 in PvE and a 6 in PvP. Since they updated it so you can spawn in heavy ammo or special ammo for your team off of majors and champion enemies, this thing has become omni-useful for Grandmaster Nightfalls. Beyond the highest level PvE difficulty though, you don't see it that often, as it's not a super fun exotic. And the last note on this is that technically in the artifact, we do have that one mod, the Lucian something, where you can actually spawn in heavy ammo for your team without using an exotic. So this season, you may not see it as often, but it's still a great exotic, and I haven't tested it, it may stack with that mod. Which, look, if you have more Galahorn shots, it's never a bad thing. Following that, at number 8, we have the Eye of Another World. Now, this is actually a very popular and common exotic, as it's very universal, and essentially just increases those three main stats, grenade, melee, and rift regeneration, by around 30. And this actually scales up and down. If you're really low stats, it goes up by 30. If you're really high stats, it goes around like 10 to 20. And from what I've heard, you can actually get to tier 11, although I have not confirmed this. It really depends if you have maxed out stats and use this exotic. And to be honest, it's really just that simple. It's something that increases your ability to regeneration, which works with ability-based builds, which obviously abilities with Void 3.0 are very strong. Coming up at number 7, we have the Stag, which I believe got buffed last season, that also added damage resistance while standing in a rift, which can dramatically increase your capabilities in PvP and in PvE. On top of the fact that you get your rifts pretty damn quickly, and a rift on your corpse that'll help with your revive. And considering how common this is in the actual Crucible and even in Grandmaster Nightfalls, I assume a lot of you guys have already used this a lot, and I would highly recommend it. Because here's the facts, Phoenix Protocol is really good and technically higher rated than this exotic. But a lot of the time, you may actually prefer the neutral game of getting your rifts faster and that damage resistance, which I think is like, what, to 25%? It gives you 2 resist stacks, can be more useful depending on what you're doing. After that, at number 6, we have the new exotic, the Osmiomancy Gloves. I hope I said that correctly. And this one has been kicking up quite a stir in both PvE and PvP. Keeping in mind that this is somewhat of a preliminary ranking, as we haven't used it for that long, but this thing seems to be doing very well. First of all, your cold snap grenades have an additional charge, which means you get overflow charging, and you get like 2/3 of your grenade on a hit, keeping in mind that actually bonking the enemy and getting a hit with the cold snap hit both count as hits. Keep that in mind and you'll have infinite grenades. Furthermore, your cold snap seekers actually go farther, but the most important thing here is the fact that you can use this with your ice turrets. So you can use cold snap grenades to get more cold snap grenades, and you can charge your cold snap grenade thing to actually spawn more stasis turrets. Using that in with the overflow charging, you have turrets a lot more frequently. And as you probably would have guessed, Grandmaster Nightfalls with those freezy turrets is just really useful. And in PvP, having more cold snaps and using that with the generation of your builds and stasis crystals is just still really strong. Coming up at number 5, we have the Phoenix Protocol, an exotic that's been hanging here in the top 10, top 5, and even at number 1 for a really long time. Because let's face the facts, a Well of Radiance makes you near invincible, do extra damage, and being able to have that more frequently makes the encounters and everything a lot more effective. However, I believe last season they made it so you capped out at 50% of your super at maximum generation from this exotic. If you combine that with one Ursa Titan, you have a near 100% guard and uptime. However, very similar to a lot of top exotics, they're not a really fun exotic to use, and you'll probably only see it in Grandmasters. And in raids, you're more likely to use Lunafaction or already have your super from the rally flag. Coming up at number 4, we have the Ophidian Aspect, a very old but still very effective exotic, especially after the quick draw nerfs, allowing your weapons to ready and reload very quickly and having your melee range extended by like a full meter is very strong. Keeping in mind, I believe this season or last season they made it so all 3 classes now punch at the same cadence. Used to be that the Warlocks were a little slower and farther ranged, now they're all the same. This exotic also increases the range on top of just having the same speed of melee. And again, this may seem simple, but being able to weapon ready and reload much faster makes it so much easier to use weapons that are really slow. Coming up at number 3, we have the Transverse Steps. An exotic, like many of the other classes, is essentially the speed boots. You go faster with this exotic on top of auto-loading your weapon. Now this may seem simple, but there's a reason why all of the other exotics, Dune Marchers and Stompies and Transversive, all of the speed boots are ranked so highly in PvP, because a fast enemy is harder to hit than a slow enemy. On top of being able to chase enemies down, being able to escape enemy fire is just such a strong thing to have in a shooter game. And on top of that, if you forget to reload and you want to make sure you have bullets in your mag, it does that for you. And in PvE, that also really helps with DPS phases with slow weapons like heavy machine gun. Don't overlook this exotic because it's simple. Moving on to number 2 on this list, we have the Verities Brow, which actually did get a boost this season with Void 3.0, considering that this works with any of the different subclasses and specifically really helps out your grenade. And Void 3.0 with all the different Void 3.0 debuffs are very effective this season, and this allows you to do more damage, do it more frequently, and help your teammates out with their grenades as well. And one thing that is somewhat confusing is the actual tooltip for this weapon. So I'm going to lay out to you exactly how this exotic works. First of all, the first part, you have to have a weapon that matches the damage type of your subclass. If you're using Void, you gotta be using a Void weapon, like that new Funnel Web or Palindrome. These are Void weapons that work really well. Whenever you get a kill with that, you get a stack of Death Throws. Death Throws up to 5 stack give you 10 to 20% more grenade damage per stack. I believe they buffed it to 20%, but don't quote me on that. And I believe when you actually get Death Throws, you actually get a static amount of grenade energy back. And whenever you throw your grenades, your teammates get energy regeneration for their grenades. So this exotic is somewhat confusing to understand, but generally it's just, if you're using Void, use a Void primary and use your grenades. That's the TLDR. And finally, at number 1, we have Contraptions Hold. Probably not a lot of people surprised here. Contraptions Hold and Void 3.0 Warlocks are extremely effective in PvE these days, on top of just being so damn fun. I use Contraptions Hold anywhere from low PvE just to have fun, to Gambit, to Strikes, to Grandmaster Nightfalls, and in raids. This thing is just so useful as long as you're using a Void subclass. In my opinion, is the de facto better option than Nezrick Synth, and a similar option to that of Verities Brow. And if you don't know how this exotic works, whenever you're charging your grenade with any of these special charging grenades like Chaos Accelerant, Feed the Void, Handheld Supernova, you get some damage resistance. And whenever you get a hit with your grenade, keep in mind this is hits, not kills, which is so much easier to do, you get a random amount of energy back, around 30 to 80%. And the fact, again, that you need a hit, not a kill, with an ability is so much better. It means you can use it on red bars, on majors, on champions, on bosses. As long as you're getting hits, you get most of your energy back, and you get to use grenades a lot more frequently with Void 3.0 buffs and debuffs. I really like this exotic, and if you want to have fun, you should definitely slap this exotic on with some Chaos Accelerant and Devour, and you're just gonna have a fantastic time. Right, with the top 10 out of the way, let's go ahead and take a look at all of the non-ranked items. I'm gonna try to go over all of these very briefly, but again, I would highly recommend you do watch this part. There's gonna be a lot of good ones in this group. First up, we have Apotheosis Veil. Cool name, but having ability stuff as soon as you exit your super doesn't make a huge difference. Astrocyte Verse basically solves every problem with Blink, making it a very strong option, but a very high skill floor, high skill ceiling healing exotic. Crown of Tempest, actually really fun to use with arc stuff, giving your arc abilities a lot faster regeneration, and I even use it with Middle Tree, even though it doesn't extend the super. Dawn Chorus, actually got an upgrade this season after I did some damage testing on it. If you don't know, I have this damage testing spreadsheet, and I found that Dawn Chorus actually increases the damage by a rather significant amount. However, it is quite niche, and you do have to have more teammates with burn effects that it does lose out very slightly to being the top 10. Fellwinter's Helm requires you to get a powered melee final blow to create an explosion at your target, not at your body anymore, that weakens them and blinds and disrupts them. A decent advantage, but a little finicky and a little dangerous. Skull of Dire Kara, actually pretty damn good, very close to being in the top 10, allowing you to use your Nova Bomb more often from getting Nova Bomb kills. However, the Nova Bomb is not a huge requirement and a small part of your build. The Claws of Ahamkara, which 100% require the Warlocks to have some type of really powerful or even overpowered melee like we used to have with Celestial Fire, but nowadays is kind of meh. Getaway Artist, a very fun and somewhat useful exotic to actually give you extra damage forward and also works with your arc buddies, but somewhat finicky and niche. Karnstein Armlets gives you a very strong healing for 8 seconds on top of a good heal right away, but somewhat dangerous. Necrotic Grips, actually kind of fun and does work with Osteo and Thorn. I would highly recommend using it with Osteo, it's pretty fun these days, but does lose out a little bit in the higher level. Nothing Manacles actually did get a lower rank this season because you can no longer use scatter grenades with handheld supernova. You have to use magnetic grenades, so you can't use overflow charging supernovas. The Sunbracers, another really fun exotic for infinite solar grenades for a small period of time, but again, depends on getting a melee kill. Winter's Guile, a melee-based exotic for melee damage by getting melee kills, and it does not stack multiplicatively, so it's not overpowered. Chromatic Fire, somewhat of a gimmick exotic that allows you to get double explosions with a Firefly weapon like Ace of Spades, but that in itself doesn't do a massive amount of damage in the highest level. Mantle of Battle Harmony, a very interesting although confusing weapon that gives you more super generation off of kills and more damage after you have a full super, which is, as you guessed it, something that's really strong. Just missing the top 10 and also no longer gives you infinite Aegir Scepter bonus. Sanguine Alchemy gives you longer rifts from standing and getting kills in your rifts. Why would this be important? And it doesn't work with the well. Starfire Protocol, a somewhat easy or simple way to get kills with your grenades and empowering rifts and cycle those between each others, and can be used for healing grenades, but just missing the top 10. Storm Dancer's Brace, essentially giving you more Storm Dancers and a higher damage Storm Dancers, but just not enough damage to get it revved. Vesper of Radius, if you want your rifts as fast as possible, this is pretty much the best you can do, but other than that, not that useful. Stag is usually better. Wings of Sacred Dawn, very high skill floor, high skill ceiling exotic that can give you some pretty saucy kills. Boots of the Assembler can give your teammates a lot of healing and a lot of damage, including a 35% bonus, which is the same as the bubble, but it just barely misses out. Geomax Stabilizers. A lot of people drop this exotic immediately, but for PvE, I still like it because it gives you double the length of super. But again, a very small part of your build. And of course, an honorable mention to the Lunafaction Boots. It can give you max reload speed in your wells and your rifts to your teammates during raids, which is really nice. It also doubles the range of any of your weapons, like with shotguns, with hand cannons, and can be used for that in PvP. Just missing the top 10. Promethean Spur, a lot of rifts around the battlefield, which don't really move the dial for your team. Seekin Filaments, a very interesting and good exotic that allows you to cast your Empowering Rift to get Devour, pretty much the only way to get Devour without a kill, and you can also disrupt Overload champions with any weapon in that rift. The biggest issue is that you have to use an Empowering Rift, which means your teammates will probably hate you. I can't tell you how many times I've run over to a Warlock in a rift and gone, I'm still dying! And of course, near the end of the video, we have cute animals on screen, so again, I could just get your attention real quick to say, thank you to my patrons on Patreon. Really, without their help, these spreadsheets, they take so much time. So they really help it so I can actually make a living. So check out the link in the description down below. You can get some bonuses for the Discord server, for early access, and all that whatnot. And specifically, a big thank you to Mom and Dad, Christian Thompson, Kelly Allen, Alstruck, Jacob Berg, Monday, Stu Bachmanus, Unipanther, and Casey Reagan for their support on Patreon. And thank you for watching these videos. My name is Zach Chronic, and I'll see you guys on the next one.